umbrella gang stalks the night. True DMT entity horror. The city breathed in slow, crooked rhythms. Alleys twisting unnaturally beneath a sickly yellow light. And I knew I had stepped somewhere between waking and impossible memory. Shadows gathered along the street edges. Umbrella tips scraping pavement with soft, deliberate clicks that echoed like whispered warnings. I could feel their eyes before I saw them. Eyes that did not belong to the human, glinting with intelligence older than the buildings themselves. A gust lifted one umbrella slightly. The figure beneath twisted unnaturally, limbs folding like paper. Yet it moved with impossible grace. The rain began, irregular and heavy. Each droplet a tiny lens refracting grotesque reflections of figures I could not name. I stumbled through puddles that hummed with low vibrations, like distant chanting, each note pulling a fragment of sanity from me. From every alleyway, whispers coalesced, speaking in tongues I almost recognized, like warnings or invitations, and I could not tell which. The umbrellas multiplied. A dozen, then 30, stretching into corners that shouldn't exist, their shadows crawling across walls as if they were alive. My heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of the clicking, a mechanical pulse echoing through veins as though my body had been claimed for the dance. A figure stepped from the corner, umbrella open, face obscured, mask stretched impossibly over bone. I felt a hunger in its gaze that I could not name. I turned and dozens of umbrellas swiveled simultaneously, pivoting in impossible geometry, like a clock whose hands stretched across dimensions. The city warped. Streetlights bent toward me. Concrete twisted underfoot, sending tremors up my legs. The gang's presence was a pulse in the asphalt itself. I ran, but alleys elongated, folding around me like paper, and the figures kept pace, silent except for the clicks of wet umbrellas against stone. One umbrella hovered in the air, untethered, its shadow reaching for me, and I realized the gang could exist apart from bodies, a cosmic echo of menace. Rain pooled into impossible shapes, reflecting hundreds of masked faces, each one blinking, some whispering in tongues I could not parse, others laughing without sound. I tried to remember my apartment, but the streets had changed, alleys folding into themselves. My body moved through a city that no longer obeyed natural laws. A sudden flash. One umbrella split into hundreds of tiny forms, all climbing walls, ceilings, and lampposts. Their click rhythms multiplying into a symphony of dread. My vision fractured, moments overlapping. I saw myself walking these alleys 100 times, each iteration watched by the same faceless gang. I ducked behind a dumpster, heart hammering, yet the shadows slid beneath metal doors, curling around corners, and I felt the pressure of unseen alien intelligence. Whispers rose like steam from the asphalt. The umbrellas hovered above puddles now, glowing faintly, revealing eyes that watched not only me, but the fabric of the city itself. My pulse slowed and quickened together. Fear became rhythm, and I realized I was moving in time with them, part of a ritual I could not refuse. One umbrella fell directly in front of me, spinning slowly. The figure behind it stepped forward, its mask cracking slightly, revealing nothing human beneath. I stumbled back, but streets warped to prevent escape. The gang's shadows bent light around me, folding reality into corners that should not exist. A chorus of clicks rose, harmonized with whispers, the city trembling as though it were the drum of some ancient and alien cult. The umbrellas pivoted, aligned, creating impossible geometry. I felt vertigo not in the body, but in the mind itself, a sense of cosmic vertigo. My legs moved on their own, carrying me toward the sound of dripping water that hummed with faint, otherworldly music. A figure extended an umbrella, tapping it against the ground, each tap folding a piece of space into itself, creating impossible angles I could not comprehend. I realized the gang had been here long before me, watching from hidden dimensions, guardians of thresholds my mind was never meant to cross. The rain intensified, umbrellas multiplying further, shadows stretching into the sky, some forming humanoid faces, others fractured, alien shapes. I stumbled into an alley that had no end, the umbrellas floating above me in perfect rhythm, waiting, watching, pulsing with some cosmic patience. My body froze, my vision split. The gang moved in unison, and I understood, in a fleeting and terrible flash, that I was already part of the ritual just by seeing them. The last click echoed like a heartbeat in my chest. The umbrellas receded, folding into impossible space, leaving only the residue of their gaze and a city permanently altered by their passage. Faces behind the rain. Rain-slicked streets reflected the world like shattered glass, each drop containing a flicker of movement I could not comprehend. Umbrellas hovered along the edges, shadows of the gang bending in impossible angles, their silhouettes twitching in time with the falling water. Faces appeared in every puddle, twisted, elongated, some with too many eyes, some missing mouths entirely, whispering unintelligible secrets. A figure moved beneath one umbrella, limbs folding in ways no human could survive. Its mask cracked just enough to hint at something inhuman. The rain hissed as if breathing, cooling into shapes that looked like crouching figures, reaching for me with translucent, dripping fingers. Every reflection trembled independently. My own face fractured, echoing across alleys that had no end, suggesting the gang existed in multiple realities at once. A low hum vibrated through the pavement, the umbrellas responding, tilting in unison, creating a geometry that twisted my perception. I ducked under a fire escape, only to see the gang mirrored on the metal above, each umbrella bearing an eye that followed me in uncanny synchronization. Whispers slithered along the air, sometimes in languages I recognized, sometimes in those that burrowed directly into my mind, speaking truths I was unready to hear. A puddle erupted, and hundreds of tiny reflections formed grotesque versions of the gang, all moving toward me with intent that felt ancient and deliberate. The umbrellas tilted, tapping water rhythmically, and I realized the rain itself was a conduit, a ritual medium I had unknowingly entered. My breath caught as one umbrella rose above me, revealing dozens of tiny eyes blinking in impossible sequences, flashing images of events I had not yet lived. Shadows slid along walls independently of light, elongating, folding into themselves like the city itself had become a living nightmare under their watch. I stumbled forward, puddles erupting into faces that screamed silently, each one frozen in agony, their voices entering my mind in a chorus of unseen terror. The gang seemed to multiply with every blink. One umbrella spawned 3 more, and then 10, each reflecting another impossible version of the city in me. I pressed my hands to my eyes, but the reflections were inescapable, burning through my vision, embedding themselves in memory like alien sigils. A soft scraping sound grew louder, like hundreds of nails on stone, synchronized with the tap of umbrellas and whispers I could barely comprehend. I moved, guided by instinct, though the alleys bent and folded like paper, twisting me through loops that made no sense but felt predestined. Umbrellas opened and closed above me, each revealing faces that were familiar and alien simultaneously, as if the gang knew every fear I had ever had. The reflections shifted. One puddle showed the gang's eyes staring through time, observing my life from places I had never been, orchestrating events unseen. Rain fell heavier, distorting reality further, umbrellas floating above in perfect choreography, pulsing with intelligence beyond comprehension. I felt the city breathing with them, streets twisting subtly beneath my feet, each corner a trap, each reflection a predator waiting for me to notice. A flash revealed the gang perched on rooftops, dripping wet and impossibly elongated, each shadow folding into itself and extending into the rain-soaked streets. The whispers coalesced into a melody, half lullaby, half demented chant, seeping into my veins and syncing with my heartbeat. claiming me in rhythm. I tried to run, but puddles became mirrors of infinity, each step spawning new reflections, the umbrellas hovering above in unending patterns. A final puddle reflected my own face fractured and bleeding into the rain, and I knew the gang was already inside my mind, rewriting memory with their presence. The rain began to slow, but the shadows remained, bending reality around me, leaving me aware that leaving was impossible, and that I was now part of the ritual. One umbrella tilted toward me, releasing a soft hum, and the faces behind the rain blinked once, twice, and then disappeared, leaving only the residue of their gaze. The city returned to normal, yet the reflections remained, subtle, waiting for the next rain, a whisper of the gang that would not leave, a mark etched into perception itself. I walked on, every step echoing with their rhythm, my mind fractured, aware that the next storm would bring them back, closer, stranger, and more monstrous than ever. The boxed killer's lullaby. The warehouse smelled of rust and dust, a hollow echo that made my teeth ache, and I felt the air bend around a rhythm I couldn't place. A small horror box sat in the corner, humming softly, its vibrations crawling under my skin, like a heartbeat belonging to something alive and malevolent. I opened the box, and the light spilled out, cutting through shadows, revealing figures that should not have existed in this world. Umbrella gang members emerged, bodies contorted, limbs folding impossibly, heads slightly too large, masks cracking in ways that hinted at something ancient and predatory. Their voices layered, a harmonic dissonance that penetrated my mind, a lullaby designed to fracture reality and fold the listener into another dimension. Shadows stretched unnaturally, crawling across walls and ceilings, forming grotesque silhouettes that mimicked the gang but moved independently, as if alive. The floor pulsed beneath me, each vibration syncing with the lullaby, forcing my chest to rise and fall in time with an alien rhythm. I could feel whispers in the air, crawling along nerves, promising secrets and horrors in the same breath, enticing me closer despite every instinct. One figure tilted its umbrella, revealing eyes that pulsed faintly, each blink imprinting visions of other victims, other rituals, all overlapping with my present. The warehouse seemed infinite, corners folding into themselves, impossible geometry that felt intentional, designed by minds older than humanity. I tried to step back, but the ground warped, folding like paper beneath my feet, forcing me closer to the gang's center, where the box pulsed brightest. A shadow detached from one umbrella, creeping toward me like liquid, its form both tangible and ethereal, whispering threats I could almost understand. Each note of the lullaby reverberated through walls, floor, and ceiling, forming a resonance that made the gang's forms flicker, disappear, and reappear in impossible locations. My vision split. I saw dozens of myself in various states of fear and ecstasy, all trapped in this warehouse with the gang, the lullaby connecting us. One umbrella tapped the floor in rhythm, and shadows spiraled upward, forming a tornado of grotesque shapes, faces stretching into impossible expressions. I staggered, trying to process what I was seeing, but every blink revealed new horrors, teeth where eyes should be, masks that moved like living skin. The lullaby reached a crescendo, vibrating through my bones, and I felt the gang's consciousness brush against my own, probing, assessing, folding me into their ritual. I stepped backward, and a puddle reflected the gang, but distorted, elongated limbs, fractured faces, submerging with the warehouse itself. A whisper threaded through the music, promising power and knowledge in exchange for obedience, a choice I had no ability to refuse. The umbrellas opened and closed in unison, their shadows merging into a wall of writhing darkness, each tap folding more of the warehouse into itself. I could feel the box pulling at my mind, the lullaby bending reality around my perception, urging me to become part of the performance. Time fractured, I saw the gang performing the ritual in loops, hundreds of versions of themselves existing simultaneously, orchestrated by some alien intelligence. One figure approached, umbrella extended, and I realized it contained all the eyes I had seen, blinking in sequences that mapped out events I had not yet lived. My heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm, a pulse I could not control. Each vibration folding the warehouse into a dreamscape of grotesque proportions. Shadows spilled across the floor, climbing my legs, merging with the walls, until I could not distinguish myself from the gang or the warehouse. A final note of the lullaby struck, and I saw the gang dissolve into black smoke, retreating into the corners of reality, leaving the warehouse hollow but forever changed. The box sat quietly, still humming, and I realized the ritual had not ended, only paused, waiting for the next intruder to stumble into its song. I left the warehouse, but each step echoed with the melody, whispers threading through the streets, reminders that the gang's presence lingered, invisible yet absolute. Rain began to fall outside, each drop reflecting glimpses of the gang, tapping umbrellas, performing the lullaby, somewhere I could not see, but I could feel. I kept walking, haunted by the lullaby, knowing that the horror box, the gang, and their impossible geometry would follow me long after I left. The city breathed around me, alive with shadows, echoes of music, and the subtle pulse of alien intent, proof that some doors, once opened, could never close. Shadow limbs in the alley. The alley twisted unnaturally, bricks folding into impossible angles, and I felt the air pulse with something alive, something waiting. Shadows slithered along the walls, detaching from their owners, stretching like liquid fingers toward me with subtle intelligence. Umbrellas hovered above, black and silent, their tips tapping the wet concrete in rhythms that pressed against my skull. A figure emerged, limbs folding into themselves, face hidden beneath a cracked mask, eyes glowing faintly like distant stars. I stumbled backward, puddles reflecting distorted versions of the gang, each more grotesque than the last, grinning with fractured teeth. The rain whispered in my ears, droplets forming words I could almost understand, luring me closer to corners that shouldn't exist. One shadow elongated, wrapping around a lamppost, climbing upward, folding in ways no human limb could obey, and I felt dread crawl up my spine. Umbrella tips tapped in unison, sending vibrations through the alley, each click fracturing my vision, revealing layers of impossible geometry. A low hum began beneath the ground, as if the alley itself was alive, resonating with the gang's presence and folding space around me. I tried to move, but the shadows anticipated, curling over each step, guiding me deeper into a ritual I could not comprehend. Reflections in puddles shifted independently, showing faces of the gang that did not exist in this reality, eyes following me relentlessly. I gasped as a shadow limb detached completely, slithering toward me with predatory patience, brushing my sleeve, cold and wet. The umbrellas rose above, forming a canopy that warped light, casting impossible angles, shadows crawling along shadows in infinite loops. I blinked and saw multiple versions of myself, trapped in the alley, each pursued by the faceless gang, echoes of terror reverberating across timelines. The rain intensified, each droplet a tiny lens showing glimpses of rituals, victims, and alien architecture folding the alley into itself. A whisper threaded through the sound of dripping water, promising knowledge and horror in equal measure. And I could not resist leaning closer. Shadows multiplied, elongating across walls, ceilings, and floors, crawling into corners I didn't realize existed, folding the city around me. An umbrella tilted, revealing a glowing eye that pulsed in sync with my heartbeat, imprinting visions of other streets, other victims, and impossible futures. I stumbled, falling into a puddle that reflected the alley stretching into infinity, shadows crawling across the water like living ink. the gang's presence became unbearable. I felt their consciousness pressing against my mind, folding perception until reality itself trembled. One shadow extended a finger-like limb, tapping the pavement, creating ripples that bent space, folding walls inward, distorting the alley around me. The umbrellas hovered in precise formation, clicking together in rhythm, orchestrating a performance of horror beyond human comprehension. I realized fleeing was impossible. Every path, every reflection, every shadow led deeper into the gang's domain, a maze of living geometry. Whispers formed a chorus, harmonizing with the clicks, vibrating through the bricks, the asphalt, and my skull, embedding a ritual into my memory. A shadow climbed my shoulder, melting into me, and I could feel part of myself folding with the alley, becoming an extension of their grotesque design. I tried to scream, but the sound dissolved into the hum of umbrellas and whispered syllables, leaving only terror resonating inside. The rain slowed, but shadows remained, stretching into corners that should not exist, waiting, pulsing, a silent heartbeat across dimensions. I moved forward, unable to resist, every step echoing with alien rhythm, every breath syncing with the gang's impossible geometry. The alley twisted again, folding into itself like origami, the umbrellas hovering above, watching, waiting for the next blink, the next heartbeat. I understood finally that the shadows were not just limbs, but extensions of consciousness older than the city, orchestrating fear across realities. The last echo of a tap reverberated in my chest, and the alley became quiet. Yet the memory of the gang remained, a permanent pulse beneath perception. I walked on, knowing that every shadow could be a limb, every reflection a face, and the umbrella gang was never truly gone, only folded into the corners of the world.